Introduce the background or opening situation. Show what event, idea, or question starts everything. Highlight difficulties, tension, or challenges. Reveal the moment where things start to change. Intermission, quick pause with music or visuals. Ask viewers to like, share, and subscribe. Promise an exciting second half. Reveal new knowledge, insight, or an unexpected twist. Build to the most intense or dramatic moment. Wrap up the story, lesson, or main takeaway. Did you know that since the beginning of the space age in the 1960s, NASA has been sending up balloons to space? Well, they're not really balloons, but rather spherical objects filled with gas lighter than air, called airships. The first one was sent up in 1964 to test out what sort of effects weightlessness would have on certain materials. And then they kept doing it. Why? Well, because it turns out there are several advantages to launching experiments via balloon instead of rocket. A simple example is that it's much cheaper to send a payload on an airship than a rocket, which cost millions. But perhaps the greatest advantage is the ability to recover the payload. You see, when rockets are launched, they either burn up in the atmosphere after their mission is done, or crash into the ocean where they cannot be recovered. But airships don't have to be destroyed after use. They can simply float back down to Earth at the end of their mission and be reused over and over again. In fact, some of the more recent ones have been equipped with parachutes to make recovery even easier. And that leads us to the balloon we'll be talking about today. On August 2023, a large scientific balloon was sent up from the McMurdo Sound in Antarctica. Its mission was to study cosmic rays and dark energy using a super cool device called the Super Timing High Energy Cosmic Origins Network, or SUSHI. That name is still pending approval by the naming committee. The launch went well, and SUSHI began collecting data, but it only lasted 2 days before its transmitter stopped responding. Thankfully, this was expected. See, these balloons typically last between 100 and 1,000 hours, not years. It's not like it ran out of helium or something. Rather, when the balloon reaches the end of its mission, it triggers its own self-destruct mechanism and falls into the sea where it's meant to be recovered. And yet, incredibly, this particular balloon didn't fall into the sea. Instead, it was spotted floating in the Indian Ocean near Christmas Island, a tiny tropical paradise located between Malaysia and Indonesia. No one knows exactly how it got there, but scientists believe it may have been pushed off course by winds and currents. Fortunately, it wasn't carrying any dangerous materials other than liquid nitrogen used to cool its instruments. So, although it's certainly possible that it could be a hazard to shipping, there's no real danger to human life. The authorities are trying to get it back though, not just for the sake of scientific research, but also because they don't want it to pollute the environment if it leaks helium. To that end, a helicopter unit from the Royal Malaysian Navy has been dispatched to try and locate the balloon. But despite covering an area of 30,000 square kilometers, they've found nothing. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. If you like what my channel does, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. But anyways, back to the video. It seems unlikely that the balloon will be recovered intact at this point. But if it were, how exactly would it be brought down? Well, while the balloon itself isn't dangerous, the equipment attached to it certainly is. The scientific instrument called SUSHI weighs around 200 kilograms and is made of delicate electronic components, so simply trying to grab it with a net or something like that would probably just destroy it. The way it's usually done is to release small weights that gradually pull the balloon downwards until it can be safely recovered by boat. But in this case, that wouldn't work, because the balloon has already been drifting for days. It could be anywhere by now. There's also the problem of actually recovering the balloon in the first place. They've got a general idea of where it might be based on wind conditions and currents, but without any updates from the balloon itself. It's just guesswork. Plus, once they find it, they'll have to worry about actually getting it back to land. They can't just tow it behind a boat. It's much too big and light. It would just drag the boat all over the place. The solution is to attach a rope to the balloon and have a separate vessel pull it back towards shore. But that raises another problem. How do they attach the rope without damaging the balloon or its equipment? The answer is that they don't. Instead, they simply dangle the rope from a smaller balloon that's attached to the main balloon. Once they spot the rogue balloon, they let go of the smaller one, which floats over to the target balloon and attaches itself magnetically. Then they slowly start reeling it in until they can grab the main balloon with a net. Of course, this assumes that the balloon hasn't deflated by then, which is quite a risky gamble. But speaking of balloons, did you ever wonder how they actually float? After all, they're made of rubber, which is heavier than air. Well, it turns out the answer depends on whether or not we're talking about a party balloon or a weather balloon. Party balloons are designed to stay afloat for a matter of hours, not days, and so they don't use helium or hydrogen, which are lighter than air, but rather hot air. When air is heated, it becomes less dense and rises, which is why hot air balloons are able to fly. Unfortunately, this also means that the party balloons eventually pop because the air inside them gets too hot. Weather balloons, on the other hand, are designed to stay aloft for days, even weeks at a time, and so they do use helium or hydrogen, both of which are much lighter than air. Anyways, we're starting to wrap up this episode now. But before we do, I'd like to thank our supporters. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And thanks for watching.